Okay, very good. Okay, good. I think I just started the recording. You're probably all going to get a message saying that the meeting's being recorded. So thank you all for being here. So far, we have 18 people on the call. I'm sure I'm going to be adding more people as time goes on. But I wanted to thank you all for coming. Basically, what we've got going on tonight is we have our two candidates for the County Legislator 10 race. As you all know, Damon is not running for re-election. He's going to be running for mayor. And we have Manuel Casanova from New Rochelle, who's announced that he's a candidate for County Legislator 10. And we have Judah Holstein from Eastchester, who's also announced that he's a candidate. What we did tonight is as the guest of our committee, I told Manuel he won the coin flip that we actually didn't have, but he won the coin flip. So he's chosen, we're going to have, this is the format that we're going to follow tonight, okay? One of the candidates is going to talk for around 5 minutes, then entertain questions. Then the question should be directed to the candidate who's just finished speaking. Then the next candidate will talk for 5 minutes or so, same thing. Then they'll answer questions from the committee, okay? After that, they'll have, in reverse order, they'll have an opportunity to do a closing. There won't be questions after the closing. If for some reason I think that a candidate needs the opportunity to rebut something that might have been said, I'll grant them that opportunity. But if all things go, pretty clearly, it's going to be candidate 1, candidate 2, then in reverse order, candidate 2, candidate 1. Okay. So, thank you all for being here. Hold on. I got a couple of more people to let in. This is perfect. Hold on 1 second. And then do me a favor, if everybody can hear me, check the chat there. There's somebody that wants to join the meeting that I'm not familiar with. I just wanted to confirm if it was somebody that somebody else invited. I'll be happy to let them in. I just wanted to clear that first. So anyway,
yeah, John, that is Andy Lau from our team.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good. Thanks for telling me. No problem. Hold on. Okay. So basically, look, everybody on the call, we're going to be electing a new county legislator in November. Okay. For those of you who have a little bit of history in the legislative district, okay, if we go back far enough, you'll remember that I believe Vito Pinto was the county legislator for around 10 or 12 years, okay? When he resigned that position, there was a special election. Unfortunately, we lost the seat to a Republican. That woman, Sheila Marcotte, carried the seat for a few years. And then in 2017, Damon Maher was elected, and he's been serving as our county legislator for the last 6 years. I shouldn't say for the last 6 years, but this will be the end of his 6th year. Okay, so the goal is basically, bear with me, I'm just letting some people in. Anybody know a Melinda? Okay, I'll hold off on her for a minute. Okay, so basically,
no, John, let her in, please. She's one of my people. And could you turn on my camera? You turn my video off.
Oh, you can't start it yourself?
No.
Go ahead, try it.
Okay, there it is.
Woohoo! Okay. So anyway, so just to give everybody an update, it's February the 9th. Okay. What happens when there are multiple people in the same party that want to participate in a certain election in Westchester County, we have what is called a mini convention. Some of the people, since this is an Eastchester meeting, some of the people that have been on the Eastchester committee for long enough will remember that there was a convention back in 2010, okay? When Greg Varian was a candidate from New Rochelle running, and there was John Fitzpatrick running. It was a very exciting convention for all of those that were in attendance that night, and I'll just leave it at that. But basically, so what's going to happen is on February 22nd, there's going to be a meeting in New Rochelle. The district leaders, you might get paperwork that calls you a committee member. Westchester County committee members, also known as district leaders, will either meet or vote by proxy on the 22nd to choose a candidate that will be perceived to be the selected candidate of the county committee mini convention, okay? After February 22nd, candidates will still have the opportunity in March to collect petitions. Just because a candidate has been chosen by the convention doesn't necessarily mean that that the other candidate may not run. You always have the ability as a candidate to go out and collect petition signatures, which is something we all know how to do in March. And then whoever submits petition signatures for the county legislative race would be involved in a primary. I believe it's on June 25th. Don't hold me to that date.
27.
27th, thank you. June 27th, the end of June. And obviously the winner of the primary will be the candidate, the Democratic candidate, in November. Okay. I haven't heard any rumors about who the Republican candidate might be. I'm sure we're going to know soon enough. But anyway, so tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to have, if everything's correct, we're going to have Judah start off the first session. He's going to talk for around 5 minutes. I'm hoping that some of the district leaders have questions for the candidates. And then after the question and answer period is resolved, we'll move over to Manuel. Same thing with Manuel. And then after Manuel, we'll go to closing statements by both candidates. So once again, thank you all for coming. And Judah, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Can I share my screen?
1 second, buddy.
Sure. Sorry, you just finished talking. I didn't mean to get right on it.
I got to figure out. I'm hoping. Let's see. Let's see if this works. Judah, see if you could do it now.
Yep,
I made you a host.
All right. Is that can everybody see that?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Well, then I guess I'll hit it right off the bat, right?
Well, right now, okay, we could see. I guess you've got what you're going to read there, and we've got the PowerPoint behind it. So I don't know if you want to change that.
Hang on. Give me a second. That's kind of strange. Give me one more second. Now I'm having a technical difficulty. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll give you a minute.
Is that
That's okay. That's your PowerPoint if that's what you want.
seeing everything?
Okay. What? Now we've got your Word document.
That's not good. All right, that's not good.
Try to print it off real quick, Judah.
All right. Give me 2 seconds here. I apologize for the technical difficulties. This worked better last time. I'm not sure why it's
It could be the way that I made you the host. It might be showing everything on your screen. So yeah, it is what it is.
all right. You guys seeing everything?
Yeah, I can see your PowerPoint now,
All right. Are you seeing the other text as well, or just the PowerPoint?
just the PowerPoint.
Okay. All right. Very good. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, all right. Well, thank you, John and Mary Ann, for the opportunity to present my background, experience, and my vision for County Legislator District 10 position to the Eastchester Democratic Committee. And thank you to all my fellow district leaders from Eastchester and Tuckahoe for being here today and for all you do for our district. Since I only have 5 minutes to tell you about myself, I'll just hop right in. My name is Judah Holstein. I'm the owner and president of Miracom Computer Corp, which I founded in 1995, the same year I graduated from Iona University, when it was still just a college. My small team and I provide software to newspapers and media companies throughout North America, including Gannett, the New York Times, and numerous others. Prior to starting my company, I was a contractor for many well-known customers, including Goldman Sachs, MasterCard International, Pepsi Cola, Dun & Bradstreet, Towers Perrin, Pratt & Whitney, Alfred Dunner, and Prodigy. I currently live in Eastchester with my wife, Jackie, and my 3 children, all of whom attended Eastchester schools. Jackie and I have both lived in District 10 nearly our entire lives. I was raised in the Bonnycrest neighborhood of New Rochelle, and my father still lives in the house where I grew up, as he continues to serve in his 52nd year as Chief of Neurology at Montefiere's New Rochelle Hospital. Jackie and her family are also rooted in New Rochelle, going back 4 generations. So I'm extremely excited at the opportunity to return to my roots and serve both the community where I grew up, as well as the community that I now call home and where I've raised my family. During my time in Eastchester, I've been involved in several community groups, mostly surrounding the schools. For 9 of the last 10 years, I've served as a trustee on the Eastchester School Board. Over the course of 3 terms as a board trustee, and before that as a PTA leader, I've had numerous opportunities to advocate for Eastchester. Oops. In my early years, when George Latimer was our state Senate representative and the ranking minority member of the Education Committee, I got to spend time with him while advocating to eliminate the gap elimination adjustment, ultimately restoring funding to nearly all Westchester school districts. More recently, I helped advocate for foundation rate restoration for Eastchester with Shelley Mayer. Over the years, I've also had the opportunity to represent Eastchester schools with Amy Pollin, and even worked cooperatively with the Eastchester Town Board and Supervisor on bipartisan initiatives to support and improve our school district. In Eastchester, I have an established reputation as being level-headed, a voice of reason. This is especially unique in most recent years, as divisive politics have found their way into school board meetings. I've always done my best to listen, maintain objectivity, and help people see the other side to try and find win-win solutions. Even when an ideal solution cannot be found, I believe people appreciate being heard, being treated with respect, and learning about the factors that lead to a decision, especially if their opinion is not the prevailing one. During my tenure as school board trustee, I've seen candidates often spend their early years on the sidelines, or worse yet, making critical errors by trying to rush through their agendas without proper due diligence and preparation. Many novice board members don't realize just how hard it is to truly find a win-win solution. Sometimes legal issues restrict you. Sometimes you're just dealing with limited resources and finite budgets, and the only way to give something to one person is to take it away from someone else. While I'm sure there will be plenty for me to learn, one can never stop learning. I believe my school board experience will allow me to hit the ground running. That experience, in combination with my strong reputation and long history of ties to all of the District 10 communities, makes me an excellent candidate for this position. One of the things I would like to begin learning right away will be which initiatives most interest you and how I can help you. Many people have asked me about my issues. What's my agenda? Of course, there are certain issues that I personally hold dear, including some that the county legislators and Executive Latimer have already been working on: social services for youth and elderly, affordable housing, healthcare, and mental health. But ultimately, it's not about me. It's about you. I'm here to serve you, and I'll hope you'll help me do that by sharing with me what you need. If that makes sense to you, and you like the idea of having an experienced candidate, a strong leader, an effective and objective negotiator with an established record of service, community involvement, knowledge of the issues, and collaboration with other elected officials, then you should choose me to represent you in February and again in November. Oops. Thank you all again for the opportunity to share with you this evening, and I hope you'll give me your support.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Judah. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to, if you want to speak, do me a favor and raise your hand, okay? Hopefully, we'll have a couple of questions for all of the candidates tonight.
You want us to ask questions of Judah now, or do you want us to wait until after Manuel speaks?
No. I'd like to have questions asked to Judah now, and then when Manuel speaks, we'll ask questions of Manuel then.
Well, I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll go first since I'm already talking. As some of you may or may not know, I have a rather unique perspective on this particular office. And Judah, you really perked up my ears at the end when you started talking about various initiatives and agendas. And our particular office has been deeply involved in housing. And we have put together 1, 2, 3, 4, going on 5 now, housing forums, symposiums, some of them online, some of them in person. Damon was the chair of the housing committee for most of his tenure. He is now on the housing committee, but no longer the chair. Affordable housing over the last 5 years has become my passion. And it's something that I need to know. I need to know not just if, but how you would continue this agenda that our particular office has.
Sorry, I was unmuted. I muted myself. Okay. Well, that's a fair question. So you know, who can deny? I mean, what Damon's done is fabulous. Who can deny that you know? Well, let me start with why it's important to me. I apologize for running around. I'm trying to think the best way to answer this question. I'll share that, you know, my children, or my youngest son is graduating from Eastchester. So they're going to be looking for ways to stay in town. My father, you know, he's probably beyond retirement age. He's looking for ways to stay in town. I think it's important. Who can deny the fact that it's important for our kids and our parents to be able to afford to live in town? I believe that you know, there have been assistance programs that have fallen by the wayside in Eastchester that I would love to see if we could try and fix in a way that is you know, appropriate. And you know, I'm not sure how I'd be able to fix that, but I'd like to take a stab at it. I do have maybe a slightly different approach to it than Damon does. I adore Damon. We've had some great chats. He's been a great friend. But I do think that sometimes we have to figure out a way to peacefully, you know, figure out a solution to these problems. So that's something, you know, to be able to talk about the value of Section 8 for everyone and not get hung up on, you know, the discriminatory things that have been done, so that we can actually do it right. You need to be able to ensure that the town is doing it correctly, and that they're not discriminating, because they should want these things for their kids and their parents too. Ultimately, that's the most important thing. So you know, that would be one step toward helping with that. I'm also familiar with the council program. I think it's the program that has recently been introduced. I'm not sure if that was Damon's, but I do think it's important to help people who are, at risk of losing their homes, be able to, have help in keeping their homes with legal aid.
Judah's talking about the right to counsel legislation, which that allows for counsel for people who are facing eviction.
Yeah.
And just as a quick aside, and I don't want to talk too much more about what we do, but I would say that easily a post-pandemic, at least 85% of our time is spent on issues of social service and housing. So those are important issues.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hopefully I answered your question.
You did. Thank you.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I think I see Chris DeGiorgio. Do you have your hand up?
I do.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'd like to get your, because I didn't hear much about this in your discussion, so I'd like to bring this up, is your position about parks. And more specifically, two things that come to mind are the Westchester County Center, which I think needs some renovation. For example, the Westchester Knicks are playing in Bridgeport. They're called the Westchester Knicks. And I'm sure there's some economic benefit of having them play in Westchester County as opposed to having them play in Bridgeport. And the second part is, the Bronx River Basin, I guess is the best way of describing that. There have been, like the bridge was down in Bronxville, the walk bridge that a lot of us use. And I've been told that they are replacing it, but I have not seen anything. And I've spoken to George Latimer twice on this. But I would like to get an understanding from you, because for this district, especially the Bronx River Path and that park is utilized by a lot of us. What's your plans of maintaining that, of advocating for parks in general? So that's my question.
Okay, a good question. So I will admit that I'm not intimately familiar with the financial situation specific to the Bronx River, park or passway, or the Westchester Knicks. I actually can be frequently found hiking the Colonial Trailway. In fact, I know it's not exactly this issue, but a friend of mine texted me a couple of weeks ago a picture. He was hiking without me. I was traveling. A picture of the Lake Isle sort of water stuff over there that they were starting to work on. That they finally are starting to work on, and said, "See, you should be here. They're finally starting to work on this. Look how good it is." I believe the parks are very important in Westchester. And I think they need to be maintained. I can't specifically answer your budgetary question because I'm not intimately familiar with, what's allocated right now, but it's definitely something I would look at and support, making sure that there's money allocated to keep the parks up and being usable. Because like I said, I'm not using the same park you are, but that's the point, right? We have beautiful parks in Westchester. We want to keep them going, and in Eastchester and Tuckahoe, we want to make sure that they are usable and in good shape. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Any other questions for Judah?
I have a question, John. This is Harmeet. Can you hear me?
Oh, Harmeet, go right ahead.
Yes, Judah. So I think I have, I think I might have talked about it with both you and Manuel, but I will like to ask the question here to both you and Manuel when Manuel has his chance, as to the flooding issues. We have been seeing the global warming, of course, everyone knows it's here. And at Tuckahoe, we have seen the effect of flooding. It is people who have been living here for decades have never seen flooding as much as it has been happening for the past 2-3 years. What are your plans to mitigate that and deal with that situation?
So I can tell you, actually, I mean, after we spoke, I did have some other conversations with other members of the community. You know, I mentioned earlier about the situation with Lake Isle, but also, you know, I talked to Sarah Kay about what she's doing in her district in New Rochelle about flooding. I talked to Catherine Parker, who's a very big flooding activist, if that's the right word. Or watershed champion, perhaps, and you know, Mary Jo Jacobs about the things she's doing. One of the things that I thought was unique about, I think it was Sarah's approach, was not just about improving the drainage and the sewer, you know, capabilities, but also improving the planting of vegetation and natural barriers to the debris. That if the sewers, because even if the sewers are big enough to support the capacity, if there's debris blocking them, you know, what's the point, right? So I think there are things that I could you know, get behind, or maybe learn from, you know, my peers, assuming I get the position, you know, to do the same for what we need to do in Tuckahoe. That would be something I'd like to follow suit with.
Thanks.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat.
Okay, hold on one second. Okay, I'm gonna read this out. It's from Paul Manfredi, who apologizes. He says he lost his voice, so he's putting this question in the message. Okay, with the governor's budget, it was announced that the New York Housing Compact will require that localities with rail stations run by the MTA undertake a local rezoning, higher density multifamily development within half a mile of the station. What is your opinion on this, and would you support the rezoning? I mean, the only thing I'm going to say in advance of Judah and Manuel answering this is, I'm not certain if that would be a county responsibility or a local one, but obviously, you know, you can both feel free to weigh in on that.
Yeah, my guess is the zoning would be local, but what I will say is I'm actually sitting here today in a 2-family house, you know, with my, you know, my family is one of the 2 families. My in-laws are the other family. It's the house where my wife grew up. And we are, I think we're probably less than a half a mile from, it's a 7-minute walk to the Crestwood station from my house. So, you know, I'm not sure, I don't know the scope of what the higher density multifamily development is. I know that you know, my neighborhood is a multifamily development, or multifamily neighborhood. I think it's great. Our community in Waverly Heights, where I live now, is very family. You know, the multifamilies are many in-law type apartments where there's, you know, it brings families together. So in general, I think multifamily, you know, opportunities are good.
Cool. Very good. Okay. Any other questions for Judah? Marianne, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I haven't asked anything political yet, since I've only asked government questions. Judah, what kind of a relationship do you have with Mr. Calavita?
So on the school board, he and I have been cordial, maybe even friendly. We get along. We've had to work together on various initiatives. In the picture that I showed with me and Shelley, it's covered by the words, but he's actually on the stage with us as we presented and you know, to the seniors about about government office. You know, I see him almost every year at the graduation. we get along. At least socially. Politically, maybe not. But it's part of the reason why I do think I have a good chance of really winning this, is because, I don't want to take this to a new degree of political, but the school board has been, when I started on the school board 10 years ago, there are 9 members of the school board. We didn't even know who was a Republican and who was a Democrat, right? We talked about bus issues, transportation. We talked about sports stuff. There was the tax cap. We had to deal with some funding that we had to change. The issues were very, very school specific issues, and it was bipartisan. There was no concept of, a Republican or a Democratic opinion. Obviously, that's changed in the last couple of years. And as many of you are aware, I'm sort of, the last of the old regime, if you will, on the school board. But I also will tell you that I've been able to work with the school board as well. I don't always get what I want. I'm still a lone voice in some ways, but on the other hand, I think I've actually helped them be better. I don't know if that's the right word, but be better, be more bipartisan, more impartial. There's some issues that we're never going to see eye to eye on, but we've been able to sort of block out the political side of things and get to the core problems and solutions. And I think that's why I'm a real good candidate for this, because I think I may actually also have their support for this.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any more hands. So
No, I see Nancy.
I have a
I see
question.
Nancy. Oh, and I see
wait,
Rick.
who's
That's
talking?
me, Nancy.
Oh, Nancy,
had
I
my
see your
hand
hand
up.
now. I apologize. Go ahead, Nancy.
That's okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna follow up with what Mary Ann said. I understand you like to negotiate and be a voice of reason, but we don't live in that world anymore as far as what's needed. And I think that it's a lot more combative. And I don't know if I'm unsure if the reach across the aisle will bring home the bacon for us. And what happens if that doesn't work? How are you going to address it if, every time you reach across the aisle, your hand gets slapped? So
here's what I'll say to you, and I understand your concerns, and I get it. What I'll say is, it certainly is sometimes a slower process to reach across the aisle. But I'll also say, we had a board meeting the other night, and we had someone come up and talk about some concerns she had about her kids. She had heard that the school is doing assemblies and other supportive efforts about anti-bias, okay? And I'm sure all of you have heard some of the things that are going on in the school. I can't really talk about those things, the personnel matters. I've had too many counselors telling me where my boundaries are, so I'm not going there. But what I can tell you is, there were some positive things that are going to come out of this, right? I don't know if it's okay to mention names, but someone in the community who many of you may know, who has been very vocal and has had more of a, I don't know what the right word is, a fight in her, if that's the right word, right? Has not been reaching across the aisle, came to share some experience she had that her children were not seeing these anti-bias assemblies and initiatives that were going on. We heard that. In fact, we were sort of already on top of it. We actually that very night had in our agenda the first reading of policy 4115 that will require all schools to hold at least 4 annual assemblies addressing academic, social, emotional, cultural, and civics topics. I'm a member of the policy committee, and I can tell you that one of the very reasons we created this policy was to ensure that all of our students get exposed to the DEI initiatives like anti-bias assemblies as quickly as possible. And that's coming from a group that, a year ago was perceived as, being racist. A week ago was perceived as being racist, right? So, we're going to do better. And we're going to, it works. It doesn't happen as quickly, but it works. That's my opinion. And I could be wrong, but it seems to be working. Is that a fair answer?
It's your answer, but thank you for answering.
You're welcome.
Okay, hold on one second.
Barry had his hand up before.
Yeah, so Barry and John both.
Okay. Either Barry or John, whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
John and I are in different places this evening. I'm going to yield to John for the moment. Let him ask his question.
Go ahead, John. You're muted, John. Okay, go
So
ahead.
a follow-up on that. How, if you are the candidate, are you planning, because the Republicans are going to bring out all sorts of dirt, especially in the Eastchester, area, to gain votes? How are you going to combat the negative publicity that they are going to be throwing because you're on the school, and some of the things, how the school has been reacting to the biases, the voting on Garth Road place being taken away, the trying to eliminate or ban certain books. And when you're presenting one side, your side, how are you going to counter the Republicans' negative campaigning against you?
Well, the Republicans aren't going to campaign against me for the Garth Road vote because they won it, if you will, right? And I was the
No,
one.
but they're going to say
Yeah.
your vote shows your position on, the voting, and that you were trying to have unfair, voting districts. They're going to use that against. They can use that
I
against
hear
you.
what you're saying.
They're going to spin
I
it
hear what you're
however they
saying.
want to use it against
No,
you.
that's
Whether they
that's
want or
valid.
not.
That's a valid concern. The Garth Road one, I think, that one specifically, I brought. I don't know if you guys saw the meeting. Barry, I know you were there. I'm not sure, John, if you were there, but I brought articles going back to 1918 showing that that Garth Road had a voting place, in history. So for a Republican to come to me and say, you were trying to gerrymander or whatever they're going to, whatever angle it is, your vote shows that you wanted unfair districts. My response would be, no. I wanted to maintain something that has been around, an institution forever, right? So that one, I think I have covered. There could be other ones that I'm going to be attacked on. The book banning thing, I was on the committee that actually steered that back from book banning to a legitimate process for if a member of the community has a concern about a book, they have a right to, appeal it. But again, there's already, I forget the year of the case, but I think it was in the 1980s, there was a Supreme Court case that said that you can't take a book out of a library. It's a violation of the First Amendment. In fact, I had a conversation on Facebook, I think, with someone about that, saying, because it was a Republican who said, at a previous meeting to me, how important their right to the First Amendment was when they came to speak at the podium. And I, in an email at the time, had recommended that they communicate their questions directly and not in a broadcast arena. So my reaction to her was, you should make sure that you understand the impact on the First Amendment, because I know how much you value that. I think I can respond to these, to most of the ones that have come at me. I can't predict everyone, right? But I've been genuine in how I've dealt with these things. I've been fairly open when I don't have, personnel restrictions and those kinds of things, or confidentiality restrictions. I've been fairly open and transparent about my position on things. Sometimes I'm, Republicans may be able to say on some things that I had a bad, opinion that doesn't match the Republican, but that's part of being a Democrat. I mean, I'm not going to win every one, but I do think I have a pretty strong, response to many of them. Is that fair?
Thanks, John. Barry, your turn.
I'm good. I'd like to allow time for Manuel, so I think maybe we should, because some people may want to ask these same questions of both candidates.
That's okay. All right. Julie Gurdon's got a hand up, so I'll go to Julie Gurdon.
Thank you. So hi, Judah.
Hello.
I mean, I know that, you have won elections in the past for school board, and I'm interested in hearing about what your strategy would be to win the general if you get the nomination. What would your strategy be to win that general election for county legislator?
It's an interesting question. So, again, I have a pretty solid base in both communities, I think. I believe. Obviously a big part of it is reaching out to as many people as I can. Damon has already, as most of you probably are aware, has already endorsed me. I've had conversations with many people in both communities that lead me to believe that if they haven't already endorsed me, assuming that the Democratic committee endorsement goes my way on February 22nd, that they will be pleased to endorse me, when the time comes. Not just district leaders, but also, other community leaders. And then it's a big part of it is activating all of us to make it happen. But certainly being out there and knocking on doors and getting it done, that's a big part of it for me. That's a big part of it for me. I have a great core team right now, and I hope to expand that as well as we get to February 22nd and beyond. So that also will help.
Okay, very good. Okay, thanks, Julie. Not seeing any other hands up. I thank you. Thank you, Judah. Now we will, I'd ask everybody who is not on mute, go on mute, and I will ask Manuel to come off mute, and I give you the stage, and let me know if there's anything you want to share, but the floor is yours, Manuel.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John, Marianne, Julie, John, and everybody else. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate you giving us the time to talk about our candidacies. Christine and I were not born here. It took us about 46 years to get here, but we're here. And we are here because we're both looking for a community that values diversity, inclusion, where everyone is included. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. For 46 years and thereafter, I think those years have helped me to prepare for this moment, whether it was during my business experiences or the political campaign experiences. As I was shared with some of you, I have an MBA. I'm sorry, did you say something? No? Okay. I have an MBA, and I have a long professional career negotiating for international carriers, doing a turnaround for a shipping company. And today I am the Chief Financial Officer and CMO marketing officer for a small communication skills consultancy firm. On the political side, I have a master's degree in political campaigns, and I worked a number of years in political campaign as field organizer, treasurer, field director, campaign manager, and I worked in local, state, federal, and even presidential races. Before this run and decided to be a candidate, I had two questions that I asked myself. One, why do I want to run? And two, will I have the team that can win in this race? We'll talk about the why in a minute, but first I want to focus on the team. In 2021, we only won by 350 votes. This year is going to be the equivalent of a midterm. George and Tim, George Latimer and Tim Aidani, are not going to be on the ballot. So the models today tell us that we are about 500 to 1,000 votes behind before we begin. And Julie, to your question about how to move forward, we'll talk about that. So what is the team that I have? I have a team that has won many races here in Westchester and other places. For example, Red Horse Strategies that has worked with George Latimer and other elected officials. I have Kim De Tomaso, Nuha Khalil, and Etain on Dito Consultant on the fundraising side. Tonight, we have Andy Loud, that you probably know from some of the different campaigns he's worked on around this area, from Mimi Roca and others. And we also have another company that's called Engage Voters, which is data and digital. So I want to tell you that with us, you already have a team that is ready to win. What's important is also the why. We're going to talk about the different details, but I want to make sure that Westchester County, in our area, is the one place in New York State and the country where you can achieve your American dream. And that goes from having local economy that's humming, with also an infrastructure that can truly deal with the changes of climate that Hamid was talking about. And so what we have put here together is a team that is ready to win and that we're going to be prepared for what comes about. This is where I promise you. I promise you sweat and tears, because this race is going to be difficult. As I said, we're basically about 1,000 votes behind. And because you have to build another 1,000, we're about 2,000 votes that we have to expand. And in order to do that, you have to engage, activate, and get them out. And as somebody who has worked in political campaigns, again, around the country for different levels, that is a mighty task. That's why here tonight, I come to ask you for your support on February 22nd, so we can start moving all the way towards November. I promise you it's going to be hard, but in us, you're going to have a professional team that we're going to be working day in, day out with you in order to make sure that we win, that we keep the seat blue, and that we make sure that we continue protecting what we have done so far under George Latimer, and that there's no turning back. Again, I want to say thank you so much for having this opportunity. I want to also invite you to join our campaign. You can go to our website, you can go and click there, volunteer, or you can send me a text or send a text to Andy. So please come and join us. And finally, I want to invite you to our official kickoff on March 5th. Again, March 5th between 1 and 2:30. Most of you should have received the email. If you haven't, please let us know and we'll be sending that information. Again, thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you, Manuel. Okay, let's see. If I don't see somebody's hand up, just hold on. Okay, Mary Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Manuel.
Hi, Marianne.
Yeah, your introductory speech was interesting, and I'm sure everybody here appreciates the fact that you have a big political machine behind you. But I mean, listen, I want to win too. And that last election was a squeaker.
Yep.
But there's a lot of reasons why it was a squeaker that you don't know about, okay? So I really wish that you would talk a little bit more about what I was talking about before, about what 85% of our job is in the District 10 office. And that is taking care of the underserved. We have DSS calls, we have concerns about eviction, we have food insecurity. I mean, I really want to know what you know about these things, and you know, what kind of compassion you have for people that live in like the southern part of New Rochelle. Like, what organizations have you been involved in?
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. I truly appreciate you asking me that. I'm going to start with my personal background, and then we'll go into what I've done so far. My full name is actually Manuel Ignacio Casanova Dominguez. Manuel because of my father, but Ignacio because of Saint Ignatius. I come from a family that has a very strong Jesuit background. So whether it was in high school or thereafter, every activity towards the community was always important. And so I come with that ingrained. So it's important what you asked me about those communities that are suffering. We are in a very challenging times. And they were talking before about housing, right? Judah was mentioning how they want their kids to live here, right? So there's that situation. But we have a number of members in our community that are having a hard time going by, okay? And so since I arrived in New Rochelle, and because I am a numbers person, I did the math that on a monthly basis, I was active in the community 1.38 times a month. And that is also considering that in the year 2018 and 2019, we were traveling with Christine about 140 nights out of the year because of our business back then. And so the first thing that I did when I moved into New Rochelle, the first thing was to help squash a project, an idea to get rid of dual language program at the Ward School. The second thing was that I joined a group that is called The Collective, which is a group of African-American parents that were concerned about how the school district was delivering for them. The third thing was that I helped a number of people to get elected to the school board because I knew how important it was. When I lived in the Upper West Side, I was part of something called CEC3, which is Community Education Council, which is equivalent to a school board, but with a little bit fewer powers than the school board that you have in Eastchester, for example. But the one thing that we did there was that we did a rezoning that desegregated schools for the first time. And so that's part of my personality. Now, then thereafter, with Christine and our family here, we did soccer coaching. So we got involved helping people that sometimes could not afford to be part of it, and here in the New Rochelle School. And at the same time, on a personal note, I've been participating in different organizations and supporting organizations and going to soup kitchens and other activities as well. Not only me alone, but also the family. And on top of that, we support a couple organizations throughout Westchester, for example, YWCA and others. And so to me, what's important is that I need to make sure, because the buck will stop with me, Marianne, not with somebody else. The buck will stop with me to make sure that the social programs that are there, that are funded, that we can even expand those. And that's the biggest challenge that we face today, because we face a challenge that we have to continue doing what we're doing, and that Latimer has done in such a way that we have our finances well managed. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we can expand our local economy so people can have access to growth. For example, here in New Rochelle, and I think you're very well aware, there is a program that gives about $25,000. It's a program with $25,000 that helps people speed up the progress of their company. So then thereafter they can have their company, and part of it is delivering services for the city. For example, housing is a mighty challenge, and we are at the very difficult moment. We have high interest rates, high prices on the homes, because we're still dealing with what happened with COVID. And real estate agents will tell you, I was actually speaking this afternoon with somebody in New Jersey, a friend of mine, he's saying he's having exactly the same situation that we have here, right? Low inventory, high interest rates. Also, we lost the SOL deductions. Because we lost the SOL deductions, the math today has become even a little bit more difficult. And I'll finish with this. In my mind, one of the things we have to think about is our competition is Mecklenburg County in North Carolina, Duval County in Florida, where some of our young people are actually moving there because they can afford to buy a house and they can get a job. And so the challenges that we have are mighty. So I really appreciate, Marianne, that you bring the aspect of those who are suffering today. And my commitment to you is that I would be looking at those in detail in order to see how we can expand what we're doing today and improve. There's always a room for improvement. As somebody who has worked in mergers with synergies, there's always a way to make things better. So I welcome working with you in the future in order to get that done. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Manuel. Okay. Harmeet, your hand is up. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Same question that I asked Jonah. What's your plan about flooding issues that we are seeing in Tuckahoe?
Thank you, Harmeet. Let me go back a little bit in history, and I'll take you to another place where I grew up in Chile. We had a small farm, and we actually had to work on getting rid of water to the farm. I'm not an engineer. I'm a grandson of an engineer, but I've experienced working with situations where water is coming up or not doing what you're expecting to do. So I'll start with that. So this is not going to be my first rodeo on that end. It is extremely challenging for families to continue to be here with the climate that we have. Is suddenly they have 9 feet of water in their garages, right? Is it challenging that it's suddenly you have water come different ways, and then the MTA is picking up water and dumping it into people's homes, right? So this is one of the reasons why I'm asking for your support to be in this role. I am a doer, and I am a doer that also has worked in logistics for a very long time. And you have to be very detail oriented in order to make sure that the projects are done. When I've talked to people in Tuckahoe and Eastchester, some of them told me, Manuel, we have been waiting for 20 years to get some things fixed. In the future, when you come, just make sure that everything is getting done and then invite people, because people have lost faith. And so in me, my background, Harmeet, in the logistics, I'm going to bring it onto the process of getting the infrastructure done, because it takes time. Judah and I obviously were talking with Sarah, because I love also what Sarah was mentioning about the mediation, right? And what is that we're doing in New Rochelle and in other places in order to make sure that we're taking advantage of the synergies of what we learn. One of the other things that I've told, and this is important in that process of getting things done, is that when I talk to the different city council members, and eventually one day we'll be also with the people in Eastchester, is that with me, we're going to have a quarterly meeting in order to make sure that the agendas are moving as they should be. The worst that can happen is when people stop believing in government. Because when they stop believing in government, they can start taking any other person to vote for any other person because they don't believe in anymore. So in me, you're going to have somebody who's going to be wholeheartedly involved in the infrastructure part. And as I mentioned to some of you, one of the things we're going to need to do is to do a walkthrough again all together. Because the challenge is not only to get the stuff done, but also to make sure that the cities and the county are coordinated. And that's another level of logistics that has to make sure. So it means not only having a team behind me, but it's also to make sure that every single piece is working. And again, logistics is easy. Building is easy. But you have to make sure that every single step is done properly. And so immediately have that commitment, Harmeet, as I said, and I will be, and again, because I'm somebody who appreciates nature in many different ways, not only because I grew up in a farm, but also because, grew up with having a farm, but also because Mother Nature to me has always brought me the peace that I need. I don't walk the woods as Judah does, But what I do is I do enjoy the parks. And so again, it's important that we deal with this on a holistic approach and in an effective way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Nancy Height, I think you're next. Go ahead.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Manuel, I'm just going to ask you the similar question that I asked Judah. I understand that you're a negotiator. And when you're negotiating in business, I'm a realtor, when we're all negotiating and everybody's reaching for the same point, we negotiate basically in good faith. But I don't really think people from the other side do that. I think, you know, we in Tuckahoe, because everybody talks about how great Tuckahoe is, and we've elected a whole, in 4 years, Tuckahoe was able to elect an entire Democratic village board. And we have experienced the dirty tricks and the bad faith of the other party. So when you're negotiating in good faith, which I believe you will be, how are you going to handle it when they're negotiating in bad faith? Thank you so much.
Good evening, Nancy, and thank you so much for that question. One of my heroes is Nancy Pelosi. And what Nancy has shown and taught us is that you have to be patient. There are points where the patience runs out, right? And the question is always, can I move the ball forward? And how much I can move it forward today, right? And so when they're negotiating in bad faith, it's very hard to try to find a common ground right away, right? It's hard. It's not easy because they're moving the goalpost, right? And so at the end of the day, what you have to continue doing is pressuring, brought up from the community in order to get it done. So that's where you have to have the ability to create a strong coalition of will in order to move the ball. And so in me, you're going to have somebody that is going to be speaking out loud when we find ourselves in that terrain. I'm not going to play with you. I'm just going to keep on moving the goalpost. And that's where you're going to have somebody come in and say, you know, enough is enough, right? Just like what we did with the rezoning in the Upper West Side. We said, enough is enough. We got to get it done. And we had a lot of opposition. There was all different arguments. It took a long time. It didn't happen overnight, but we got it done. Why? Because we were steady on our effort, but also because we got a lot of people involved in this. When we're building this campaign for November, it's not just for November. It's also a campaign to engage, activate, and get people out when we find ourselves in those great moments where we have this group of people not negotiating in good faith, right? If people change and they start negotiating in good faith, then the math changes, right? So all I'm going to say in this regards, Nancy, is that you have to come with patience. You have to come with knowing what's the north. You have to come also knowing that you got to bring a lot more people around you in order to create the support. And that's why it takes time sometimes. It's not overnight. And so in me, that's what you're going to have. Again, the negotiations that I've had, I recall one in particular that is particular to me because it was very unique. I found myself in London negotiating with Goldman Sachs and American Express. And on the other side, I had my two headquarters, Santiago and Sao Paulo. And for about 5 hours, we were there going back and forth. And I was able to bring the expectations on one side to a manageable level and also to the client. Now, not equivalent to what you have here because everybody wanted to arrive to an end. But sometimes arriving to that end, that's take time, that's take patience. And there are going to be moments, Nancy, that I'm going to say to you, because I'm always going to be a straight shooter. I'm going to say, Nancy, we're not there to you today, but we got to keep on bringing everybody out in order to make sure that it's heard. We got to bring also the media. We got to be smart about how we use it. Finally, when we're building this coalition, one of the important aspects here too is that we have to get the Latino vote out. And it's important because today, in the last primary, we only got about 5% of the vote was from the Latino community. There are large numbers of people that are there that have not been activated, that eventually they need to have that voice. So when we want the change, those voices do show up. Those voices do come out, because that changes people's minds. When at the end of the day, it's not just one group, not two people, but it is a group, a coalition. And so that's what I'll bring to the table, Nancy, and thank you for the question.
Very good. Thank you, Manuel. Krista Giorgio, your hand is up.
Yes, Manuel, well, I'm going to ask the same question about the parks, but I also have another question for you, because unlike Judah, you come from really a one-party city. I'm just going to say it. New Rochelle is pretty Democratic.
Yep.
Eastchester is ruby red Republican, and Tuckahoe is purple.
Yep.
So, so the questions about the park and the Westchester County Center still hold. I want to ask that question. But the second question is, in your campaigning especially,
Yeah.
I've always said, as former chair here, it's very easy to win in a Democratic city when you're a Democrat.
Yep.
It's not so easy to win as a Democrat in a purple place or in a ruby red place. We found that out in our town elections, for example. So I guess I have that question of you as well. Your experience in being in a place that is not so hospitable to Democrats. If you can expound on how you break through mitigating the losses, especially in Eastchester.
Well, thank you very much for that question. And I'm going to answer that question in a couple of ways. First, I'm going to go a little bit back. I'm going to take you everyone to 2006, my first campaign as a field organizer. At the 25th Congressional District, at that time, the 25th Congressional District, with Buck McKeon. I mean, it doesn't get any more red than that district. That's the district that in California borders with Vegas, okay? You have the small town of Barstow, known for some of their tacos, etc. I mean, it doesn't get any red than that. So I have that experience. So that was my first lesson. That was basically welcome to a red district world. So I have that experience. That's number one. Number two, I had the opportunity to work in other red districts, for example, in Staten Island. When I was a consultant, my first client was somebody who was running against Nicole Maliotakis, that you all probably know, right? In Staten Island. And so what I've learned in those campaigns is that what you have to do is you have to double the numbers in other places, because you don't know how you are going to perform in that difficult district. That's number one. Number two, you're going to have to also bring into the fold those that at one point were Republicans, but have moved away from that, and you have to bring them in. And that's why I'm asking for your support today. So on the 22nd, I can have your support and we can begin that work now, because that work is difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not an easy job. It's going to take effort, as I said before, sweat and tears and a lot of money to bring it in. Okay. And it's not only for this campaign, but also moving forward. So eventually we can have more Democrats in the town board, just like Tuckahoe has done, right? So one is to have a team that has done it and can do it. That's number one. And I forgot to mention another race, which was very unique. Sean Malone in 2014. We didn't win until around midnight that night. So I've done the work in order to and work with others that have been successful. So I bring that with me. Okay, not only in terms of what we're going to do strategically on the campaign, but also how you set up your team and your organization in order to succeed. So that's on that end. Regarding parks, I'm sorry, but I'm going to bring it to my family too. And this gives me permission to talk about my mom, who I dearly love. And we talk twice a week. My mother is a garden designer. And so growing up at the farm, she was able to build part of our little house very similar to what you see in other parts of the world. And when I moved to the US, I first moved to Miami and then I moved to New York. When I lived in Miami, because I had not a lot of money, when I moved to Miami, just to give everybody context, I was finishing my bachelor's degree. And so I needed to do 2 years, but I only had money for 16 months. So I went to the counselor and said, I have 16 months. And they said, no, you need 24 months. I said, no, I need 16 months because that's how much money I have. So anyway, my point here is that the parks in the Miami area were crucial to me as a place for me to go and rest and explore. So I cherish them dearly. In New York City, when I lived in New York City, I always tried to live as close as possible to the parks. The parks, to me, at the end of the day, are that unique place where, one, people can come and be together. That's number one. After COVID, we have learned how important they are in order to give people that mental break, right? And number three, there's another element that is very important to me, which is the beauty of it. The beauty of it makes you smile, brings joy to the soul. One of the things that it's a pet peeve of mine, and some of you have heard this before, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating this, is that when we drive on the Hudge, we see trash. I can tell you, Chris, that the day that I walk into office, if I'm privileged to do so, the first question I'm going to ask is, who is in charge of that? Because what it does is it tells everybody that nobody cares. I know it's the wind that brings some of that stuff, right? I don't think it's people from our community driving and dumping things. So to me, our exteriors, whether it's the parks, whether it's the streets, it's extremely important. So it's important because at the end of the day, it's part of making sure we are in a place that we care. If we care for the outside, that means that we care for those who are living inside of their homes. So there's a combination of that. So one, to me, the parks are important because of the ability for you to be outside without having to pay anything for it, right? We do pay taxes, so the taxes go for that, right? I think it's about $60 million that we have allocated for parks and recreation for 2023. And so that's important. But at the same time, it's a place where people can come together, especially in the warmer times of the year. And also for those who have animals or dogs, right? Dogs, hopefully mostly, right? And so Christine and I and the girls, we have a dog. His name is Samson Casanova. And we welcome. And so we welcome when we have green areas because obviously it makes it easier for us to have there. So thank you so much, Chris, for that question. How does that sound?
I still would like an answer on the county center as well.
Oh, okay. So I'm not fully, I don't know all the details on that, but let's talk about economic development because that's an important part. As I mentioned earlier, to me, it's very important that all our local economies are humming, particularly because today we're in that situation where, yes, we have low unemployment rates, but we have still inflation about 6.25%, right? And we have housing that is in the challenge that it is, right? And as Mary Ann was talking before, there are people that are suffering. There are people that are not able to make ends meet. And so it's important that we can balance all those things. So for that center, what I'll do is to look at the details of that. And if you don't mind, I'll come back to you on that end to understand fully all the details about that, because I would love that we have a place where the team can play here, because it's home. Again, if we want to make this the place where you can achieve your American dream, the practical items are what we were talking before with Hamid and others about infrastructure, is particular with the flooding, making sure that the team is playing here, right? This is the home. I can share with you that I have a secret dream, and I'm going to put it in the bucket of dreams. I play soccer. My girls play soccer. And I've asked people that are in office today, why is that we don't have a women's professional soccer team here in Westchester? So again, I'm going to put that in the bucket of dreams, okay? But what you mentioned is very important, so I'll look it up, and if you don't mind, once I look it up, I'll come back to you and talk more on details. What is that I think that it can do? I'm also going to be looking at the budget in terms of more or less what we can expect. But know that in me, you're going to have a promoter. Just like I was the other day with two different businesses that have opened. One is called Rumble Box, here in New Rochelle, and there's a new Dunkin' Donuts that was open, in me, you're gonna have a promoter of economic growth. Why? Because of what Mary Ann said. Because that brings opportunities to those who today don't have a job. And it's important that we create that. And so in me, you're gonna have that kind of Democrat that is gonna be looking to balance the budget, to make sure that we can expand the services, and at the same time that we have an economy that's serving everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Manuel. Okay. I'm scanning. I don't see any more hands. So
There's a question in the chat.
oh, wait, hold on one second. Thanks, Nance. Hold on. There's a question in the chat.
Oh, you want me to look at it?
No. I'm going to read it. Would you consider county-wide legislation that would restrict the banning or removal of books in school? Okay, I'm going to ask the question, but I'll leave it up. I'll leave it up to let me just state, school districts, as a former school board member, school districts are run as separate entities. They don't take direction from the county, but, let me, go ahead. If Manuel, if you want to answer that question, would you consider countywide legislation that would restrict the banning or removal of books in school? And then we'll ask Judah the same thing.
Well, thank you for that question. And as Judah mentioned, what we heard the other night on Tuesday night was pretty upsetting, I have to admit, particularly as somebody who is of Hispanic or Latino background, and particularly because I heard those parents share stories that are upsetting when kids are treated differently just because of who they are. We are in the wrong place. So, and I'm going to answer the question in a second. We have a lot of work to do. And part of what our campaign is going to work on is to start trying to change that narrative that if you disagree with me, you are the enemy. Okay, so we're going to work on that. Now, regarding the schools, as John was talking about, we have different authorities in jurisdictions. That doesn't mean you don't have a voice. And there's an agenda that you can execute at the county board, and there's an agenda you can execute in the public plaza. And so there also, I have legal questions about what you can do on that end. So I would entertain not going and talking about the banning, but how to make sure that books are available for children all throughout Westchester. Doesn't matter where they go. And so that's another conversation to be had. I am completely against banning books. If you see behind me, this is where my personal savings go. It's in books. My two daughters read a lot. I read a lot. Same with my wife. And so for me, freedom of opinion is important. And I live on Lincroft and Payne. And on Payne, as a lot of you know, we have the statue of Thomas Paine, right? Somebody who fought for his ideas, who during the birth of the country, he was fighting for, make sure that there was the ability to have a different thought. He was persecuted and he had a number of challenges because of that. So again, we are a country where the First Amendment is cherished because we know how things can go wrong. Finally, I want to bring the subject that as somebody who grew up in a country that split itself politically, there was no conversation about banning books back then, but banning books is a consequence of something else before. Because I grew up in a place that split itself apart, where I can share, what I can share is that within even my family, I have an uncle and an aunt that do not talk to one another. They're siblings. They don't talk to one another because of politics. And this is because of 1973. That's how old schism is. So in me, you're going to have somebody who's going to start working to change the narrative so we don't find ourselves in the banning book world conversation. Because that, again, as I said, that's a consequence of something that happened before. So in that way, I'm a doer who's going to try to unite people, to open the door for those who disagree with me. Then I'm going to hear them. And that you do, making sure that you're out in the public with public forums or town hall meetings. I am somebody who's very much a fan of town hall meetings. I wish we could do more of those, right? In order to bring all those voices, it's important that people share what they think. Because in that way, when it's done on the open, they can hear others and begin the conversation, the civic conversation in the public plaza. So again, in me, you're going to have somebody who's going to be very active on that, because I don't want to find ourselves talking about banning books, banning this kind of people, that kind of people. And as you can imagine, as an immigrant, I've had some situations where people say, well, you're not from here, man. And I'm like, sure, I was born in Europe, raised in South America. I usually say, you know, born in Europe, raised in South America. Hey, I'm your typical New York fan, right? So at the end of the day, what I want to say is, in me, you're going to have that force, that activism that is going to work within the legislature, but then there's going to be a voice out there. Again, what happened on Tuesday was upsetting. And again, there are spaces for you to be to act. And to me, you're going to have that voice there that is going to try to change things so we can move away from saying so-and-so is an enemy, so-and-so is an enemy, because they did think differently. So, thank you for your question.
Okay. Okay, Judah, your shot at that question before we go to closings. Go ahead.
Yeah, if it's all right. I want to, thank you, Manuel, for your comments. Unfortunately, I can't really address your feelings on Tuesday. Like I said before, right up until that meeting, we were getting advice from council on the boundaries that we could and could not pass, having to do with confidentiality and personnel issues. And I'm not going to say anything tonight or any night that would put our school district at risk in any way. So I'll leave it at that. But what I would say regarding the book banning, to Paul's question, is I would recommend you guys all, after tonight's meeting, Google the PICO decision of 1982. It's the Supreme Court decision where the book ban conversation is not a new conversation. And when a parent in Eastchester came to us last year as a board demanding that we ban a book, I was the one that didn't have to yell out and scream at anybody, but behind the scenes reminded our administration and the board that we have this legislation already in place that protects this country from banning books in schools. I'm not convinced that there would need to be a reminder at the county level of that legislation, but I certainly, or at least not to make legislation to remind other school districts in the area of the Supreme Court ruling from 1982 that still stands, because clearly there are areas of the country where that Supreme Court ruling is not being attended.
Yep.
But as I expressed in my comments earlier, my approach to some problems and my activism comes in the form of finding solutions and making them happen. So I hope that answers your question, Paul. And
And let me expand a little bit on what Judah said. Thank you, Judah. That if a case goes up to the Supreme Court and suddenly the Supreme Court, we know what kind of Supreme Court we have today, and that changes, then probably maybe they're going to be on a legal path, whether it's through the state or other, right? So just want to add that to the conversation. Thank you.
thank you also.
Okay. Okay, seeing no more hands up, we're going to go to closing statements. Manuel, you go first for closing statements.
Well, first of all, again, Mary Ann, Julie, John, and everybody that is here tonight, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a district leader. Thank you for being an active Democratic member here in District 10. Thank you so much. As I said before, the biggest question we need to ask ourselves today is how can we win? We must keep the seat blue. In our campaign, we have that team. No, we don't not only have the team, but I have the experience that I've worked in districts as difficult as ours can be. In our campaign also, we have the ability to build that coalition that is going to bring everybody out. So I ask you today to join our campaign, to help us make that coalition true, to broaden what we have built so far. And we just started. We are in what I said on Sunday when some of you came to visit, so thank you for those. We just finished first gear. Now we're moving on to second gear. After petition is third gear. And then we're going to be on fourth gear to the primary. And then we got to be going fast on fifth gear. But to go fast on fifth gear, you got to go to a flat terrain. That means the machine has to be running and humming. And so again, I invite you to come. We have the team, the dedication. And in me, you know that I'm going to be knocking on doors like there's nobody else. I'm going to try to match Damon. I'm going to try it. I know Marianne's saying like, no, you can't. But I'm going to try it. And as I told some other people, actually, my Hoka's sneakers just arrived. So I'm ready to go and knock on doors and pay the pavement. I've done it in the past. I'm ready to do it today. We have a team and I have the experience to do it. And again, I bring a diverse background that I think and we know that it's going to reach and touch those hearts throughout the district in order to build a Westchester that is the one place in the country, in the state of New York, where you can reach your American dream. Thank you very much. I look forward to connecting with you. My cell phone number, John has shared with all of you. Feel free to text me. You're welcome to come on March 5th. And before that, please sign up as a volunteer or connect with me. And I look forward to hearing from all of those that we have not talked to yet. I welcome connecting with you face-to-face or via phone. Thank you. And again, thank you to everybody for being here tonight.
Thank you, Manuel. Okay, Judah.
Okay, thanks, John, and thanks, Marianne, and thanks, Julie. And I wanted to once again thank you all for coming out this evening to learn about your choices for county legislator. Tonight, you've had an opportunity to ask us your questions, to learn a little bit more about us. As I said at the start of this meeting, it's my intent to represent you and to hear how I'll be able to support you as your county legislator. And I'm grateful that you've shared some of those questions and concerns with me tonight. I hope that in the coming days and weeks, we'll get the chance to know each other even better. It's true, Manuel has a strong head start on building and engaging his team. But I think as you get to know me, you will find that the depth of my experience, commitment, passion, demeanor, and attitude makes me the best candidate to win this race in November. And I hope I'll be able to count on all of you to help me do that on February 22nd. So I wish you the best evening and thank you again. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We recorded
Thank you
it.
very much.
We recorded it, so I'll be sending it out to everyone that was here and everyone who wasn't here. So thanks again and have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Many
you.
thanks, John.
Okay.
Many thanks. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.